I walked to the balcony and gazed for a moment at the majestic dome of the new church, then went downstairs and stepped into the porticos. At short intervals, priests and clerics came from their various assignments and crowded around me. Among them, Father Rua, Father Savio. So as soon as I stood chatting with them, the Church of Mary, Help of Christians, and all the present buildings abruptly disappeared, and we found ourselves in front of an old shed. A vine sprouted up in exactly the same place from the same roots, grew to the same height, and then spread its shoots horizontally throughout a very vast area. It sprouted leaves. Then there came clusters of grapes that ripened under my very eyes. But no boys were to be seen. The bunches of grapes were truly enormous, like those of the promised land. One of them would have taxed the strength of a man. The perfectly ripe golden grapes were oblong and extraordinarily large, that a single one would have been quite a mouthful. Unceremoniously, Father Cagliero plucked a few grapes and put one in his mouth. No sooner did he sink his teeth into it that he spat it out forcefully that we thought he was vomiting. The grape had the taste of a rotten egg. Goodness, he exclaimed, it's enough to kill a man. We all stood speechless. At this moment, a serious-looking man came out of the sacristy of the old chapel and up to me. How can such beautiful grapes taste so rotten? I asked him. As if in answer, he gravely fetched a bundle of sticks, picked a well-knotted one, and offered it to Father Savio, saying, take this and thrash these shoots. Father Savio refused and stepped back. The man then approached Father Francesca, but he too declined. The stranger then turned to Father Cagliero and then, taking him by the arm, tried to press the stick in his hand. Take it and strike, he said. Thrash and knock down. So saying, he pointed to a certain point. Startled, Father Cagliero stepped back. Are you joking? He exclaimed, striking his fist into his other hand. But the stranger insisted. Take it and strike. Not I. Father Cagliero shot back. Then he hid behind me in fright. But unperturbed, stranger turned to Father Rua, who, like Father Cagliero, took refuge behind me. The man then came up to me. Take this stick and strike these shoots, he commanded. I made a great effort to see whether I was dreaming or awake, but it all seemed very real to me. Who are you? I asked. Why must I knock the shoots to the ground? Am I dreaming? Am I imagining things? Are you speaking to me in God's name? Draw closer to the vine, he answered. See what's written on these leaves. I complied and read, Ut cuori. Why does it still encumber the ground? Luke 13:7. That's from the gospel, my guide exclaimed. Yes, I remarked. But remember that in the gospel we read that our Lord allowed vine dresser to dig around it and manure it, putting off his destruction until every attempt had been made to help it bear fruit. All right, he will postpone the punishment. Meanwhile, take a look. So saying, he pointed to the vine. I looked but could not understand what he was driving at. Come here and read what's written on the grapes. I noticed then that they bore the name of each pupil and his predominant sin. I was aghast at what I saw. I was particularly frightened by such inscriptions. Proud, unfaithful to his promises, unchaste, two-faced, neglectful of these duties, calumniator, vindictive, heartless, sacrilegious, contemptuous of authority, stumbling block, follower of false doctrines. I saw the names of those quod Deus venter es, whose God is their belly, of those who scientia infiat, are bloated by nasty, seek their own interests, not our Lord's. Of course, of those who scheme against their superiors and house rules. Those names identified past, present, and future pupils of ours. The last mentioned, quite a number of them were unknown to me. This is the fruit we get from this vineyard, he said gravely. Bitter, bad, and harmful to eternal salvation. I immediately tried to jot down some names in my notebook. But again the guide stopped me. What are you up to? He asked. Please let me take down the names of those so I may warn them privately and correct them, I pleaded. It was no use. He would not consent. If I tell my boys the pitiful state they are in, they will amend their lives, I insisted. If they do not believe the gospel, He replied. They won't believe you either. I kept insisting that I want to take some notes for the future. But ignoring me, he walked up to Father Rua with a bundle of sticks. Take one and strike the vine. Crossing his arms, Father Rua bowed his head and murmuring, Patience, glanced at me. I nodded approval. Father Rua then grabbed a stick, got close to the vine, and began to beat it at the spot indicated. He had hardly dealt a blow when the guide mentioned him to stop and shouted to us all to step back. We all withdrew a certain distance. From where we stood, we could see the grapes swell up, and through their golden and oblong shape, became hideous masses resembling shellless snails. Again, the guide shouted, Watch now, the Lord takes his vengeance. Immediately the sky darkened and dense fog covered the vine entirely from our sight. Through the darkness lightning flashed, thunder roared, and dreadful thunderbolts struck everywhere over the playground. The vine shoots bent under the furious wind, and all the leaves stripped away. Finally, a hailstorm hit the vine. I tried to flee, but my guide held me back. Look at the hail, he said. I noticed that the hailstones, big as eggs, were either black or red, each pointed at one end and flat on the other, like a mallet. Those nearest me were black, but beyond I could see the red ones. It's weird. I never saw hailstones like this. Get closer, the stranger said, and you will see something else. I complied, but an awful stench made me draw back immediately. At the man's insistence, I picked one up to examine it, but unable to stomach the smell, I dropped it instantly. I couldn't see anything. I said, Try again, he replied. Overcoming my revulsion, I took up a black hailstone and read on it, Immodesty. Then I walked over to the red hailstones. Though ice cold, they started fires wherever they fell. I picked one up. It still smelled very badly, but I found it easier to read on it. Pride. Somewhat embarrassed by these findings, I asked, Are these then the two main vices threatening this house? These are the two main vices that ruin most souls, not only in your house, but all over the world. In due time, you will see how many will plunge into hell because of them. Then, what must I tell my sons to make them abhor them? You will soon find out, he said, and moved away from me. Meanwhile, hailstones kept pelting the vine furiously amid thunder and lightning. The grapes were now a mess, looking as if they had been thoroughly crushed by winter's feet in a vat. They fouled the air with such a sickening stench that it was hardly possible to breathe. Each grape gave out a smell of its own, each more repelling than the other, depending on the number and kind of sin. Unable to stand it, I put my handkerchief to my nose and turned to go to my room. I realized then that I was utterly alone. Yeah, Father Rua, Father Cagliero, and the others had fled. In that silence and solitude, I became so frightened that I broke into a run and woke up. As you see, this was a very nasty dream. But what happened the following night was much worse. I'll tell you about it soon. What dreams imply are at present beyond your understanding. I shall explain them in due time. Don Bosco, Volume 9, page 80 to 84.